Others and I saw a mist form around Rolling Thunder's body in the summer twilight, extend out from his body by about 6 to 18 inches, and as it grew in intensity, and as his hand with the crow's wing moved over the boy's wound, it was mesmerizing. It started to heal the wound, he says.
That's incredible.
Now, as Rolling Thunder stepped back from the table, they look closer and they can see that the wound is now closed. It was open before. And not only that, but the skin looks like, you know your skin when a scab falls off?
Yes.
And it's all pink and smooth?
Yes.
They said the skin looked exactly like that.
Bizarre.
Like it had been sealed. It was all taut, smooth, and pink. Now,
You know your skin.
he says it was clear this was no trick. Nothing could explain this. And they all saw it. All these physicians are standing there. And they're all bamboozled. And he looks at the steak, and it looks like it's aged 1,000 days.
Isn't that interesting? Because I was thinking about this before, and I thought, this sounds like those old legends of like taking the life force of something and transferring it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Isn't it weird?
And because it was Schwartz's job to go and buy the porterhouse steak, he said, it was a fresh steak. I bought it myself. It was perfect. And when we had to throw it away, actually the instructions from Rolling Thunder were to incinerate it and make sure that no one touched it with their bare hands.
Interesting.
And according to the story, the boy was healed. He has more in that chapter of the other physicians talking about it, and most of them just not being able to accept what they saw. But, very clearly it wasn't some kind of trick.
But you would think also with this kind of thing, there is some type of transference of life force. Maybe it's cliche to expect that they would have, like a young virgin there to take the energy from, not a steak. Why a steak? But obviously you can pull it from anything. But if you think that there's, like panpsychism, there's life in everything, you can pull it from anything.
I guess. I mean, what if it was a cheap cut? What if it was...
Yeah, exactly. What if it was rump?
Offal or something?
Yeah, you're in a lot of trouble then.
Well, more stories came from Brian Wilkes. He's a journalist, educator, and prolific author. But also, he's part Native American. And he writes how he was having all these recurring dreams in the 1980s. And the dreams were that he was driving from his New Jersey home and he was trying to make it to Nevada. He was trying to get out there. And this dream would always kind of wind up with him not reaching his destination. And he would always wake up from the dream thinking, why would I be driving to Nevada? I don't even know anyone there. Maybe my publisher's out there somewhere, but he just could never work it out. And during one of these recurring dreams, it's interrupted one night by a telephone call. And he's really annoyed because it's like 4 a.m. He goes to pick up the call. And there's this gruff voice on the other end of the line that asks, is this Brian Wilkes? And he says, he's thinking, who the hell has got my number? It's unlisted. And he says, yeah, this is Brian Wilkes. Who is this? This is Rolling Thunder in Nevada. I believe you have some questions for me. And this guy is
a bit weird,
bamboozled, because, again, like the woman who had the thunder roll through her house, he had just finished reading his book.
Isn't that weird?
And had the same questions of, is this guy full of shit?
So they're not connected? So there's no connection, and yet somehow he's managed to get his phone number and just randomly call him?
The only connection is that he's read the book about the guy. It would be like you listening to Mysterious Plus at home, and then at 3 a.m, Aaron calls you with a sniffly nose, going, what's wrong with you? Why didn't you like that segment? We do have the means to do that. We do have some of your phone numbers.
Yeah, we do.
So he realizes, I actually do have some questions for you. I mean, this is very weird, but yeah, I've got some questions. And he starts asking questions like, why has my Native American ancestry been hidden by my family? Why have they been ashamed of it? Why is Cherokee tradition and its language and culture so different to the other Native American tribes around it? All these questions. Why do I have these strange waking dreams? What am I supposed to do about this? What about the prophecies? It's just asking all these questions. And long story short, what develops is a relationship that only occurs via telephone. But this guy basically goes on a kind of quest to search for his ancestry, and he kind of becomes a bit of a medicine man himself. And of course, Rolling Thunder died in 1997. And this guy, Brian Wilkes, is explaining that he never got to meet him face to face. But of course, later on, he learnt that Rolling Thunder had lived for years in Nevada
Mhm.
And that reoccurring dream was him trying to make it to his house in Nevada.
Oh, isn't that strange? See, that's interesting. Okay, so that's a little bit more leaning towards it just being beyond chance.
And then this
or
guy,
coincidence.
well, this guy then just throws in his own story, which is also amazing because in the spring of 1998, this is a year after Rolling Thunders died, KHR elders in Lima, Peru, they invite him to participate in this dedication of a community center,
Right.
all these ceremonial rituals. And the story is that some of the native people in Lima, Peru, they, of course, they had a lot of problems with being driven out of their native lands, trying to integrate with the greater population. And they were looking at the Cherokee tribe in the US because apparently they're a good example of maintaining tradition whilst integrating well.
Right, yeah.
So they invited him, Wilkes, over because he was Cherokee. And he said, as he prepared for the trip, he was asking advice from the rest of the Cherokee elders about how to approach it. And one of the seers, one of the elders, came back to him and said, I got a message for you. And the message is, don't touch the water before doing ceremonial purifications.
What does that mean?
He had no idea. He's like, what the hell? Okay. So he thinks it might be about dysentery or something. So he gets on the phone and he calls the guys in Peru. Actually, he emails them and he says, I got a message about the water. Don't touch the water. Do you know what this is about? And the guys in Peru get back to him, the elders, and they say, yeah, we know what the message means. We'll go there first. We'll take care of it. So he tries to get more information before he goes on the trip. He eventually learns that the water is from a lake. So he asks, well, what lake is it from? And they just reply one line, it's a sacred lake. So type, he replies again, can you tell me anything more about the lake? And they reply again, one line, it's a very sacred lake.
Oh, God.
So he gives up.
Oh.
He jumps on the plane. He flies to Lima. And he said when they arrived, he met one of the local shamans, Don Enrique. And the guy was in his 40s. He was a highly regarded spiritual leader in the mountain communities. And the first time he meets this guy, he looks at him really strangely. And he makes this motion with his hand, like a clawing motion. And through a translator, Don Enrique says to him, you did a ceremony recently. You used a claw against a dark creature. Now, Wilkes is blown away by this because indeed he had recently used an eagle claw to drive off what he describes as a vampire-like creature that was attached to a friend of his. He
had a spectral creature.
Yeah, he had a ritual and he removed this entity from his friend. And Don Enrique, this Peruvian elder, says, you put your claw into this creature, but what you don't realize is that it put its claw into you. It left a poison in your body that is heading for your heart, he says. Unless we act soon, you will die in a few days. Oh. So he's just got off the plane, probably had some shit airline food, needs to take a shower, and now he's just been told he's going to die in a couple of days. Oh, good. So he doesn't know what to do. He just has to follow this guy's recommendations. And he didn't tell anyone that he had used this claw in this ceremony to help his friend.
Yeah, it's strange that they know that.
So it's weird that they know, yeah. So in the morning, they head out to this sacred lake for this ceremony. It's 300 miles north of Lima. It's one of those high elevations in the mountains. Gets super cold at night and really hot during the day. And when they arrive, it's nighttime, so they camp by the lake. And he says after a few hours of sleep, he's woken up by this Peruvian shaman. And he's exasperated, and he's speaking really fast in Spanish, just kind of yelling at him. And he goes and gets the translator, and the only words he can get is Amarillo intenso. Amarillo intenso. That's all he's saying. Amarillo intenso. The translator comes back and says, okay. He's saying that there's a spirit that came to wake him up in the middle of the night, and it gave him a vision. He says he doesn't know who the spirit is, but he thinks it's your teacher.
Okay, as in a guide.
Keeps saying, tu maestro, your teacher came.
Right.
And the translator says, don't worry, you'll understand this soon. It'll be fine. So he still doesn't know what to do. So he goes to the lake for this ceremony, hoping that the poison that's about to poison his heart and kill him is going to be stopped somehow. And he reaches the end of the lake, and he remembers the warnings from back home of saying, make sure you do the ceremony before you touch the water.
Yeah.
Do the offerings before you touch the water. So he does this. He talks to the local spirits, and he leaves gifts for them. He leaves medical plants and this gem that he brought over, and like a brand new, I don't know, iPad. Puts it,
Sacred.
Puts it
Sacred,
there.
sacred gift.
Puts it there next to the lake, and it's a gift for the spirits who live in the lake and the mountains. And as he's doing this, the final part of the ceremony is to enter the water. So he thinks, I really hope that I've done what I need to do before I touch the water. So he goes into the water, and the final part of the ceremony is to cover himself with water 7 times, wash himself. And he does this. And as he's pouring water over his head, he says on the 7th pour, time slows down and the scene begins to change, and images start to weave in and out before him, almost like he's switching channels on a TV set, he says. Reality is just switching back and forth, and he can no longer tell which way is back to the shore. He's completely discombobulated. And finally, the voices of his companions pierce his awareness, and he slowly makes his way towards them in this weird daze. And as he reaches them, he realizes he has no heartbeat. And it's like,
Holy Mother of God, he's flatlining. You killed him. Oh my God, I didn't kill him.
and as he's flatlining,
What the hell was that?
as he's flatlining,
What the hell is going on here?
I missed some of the clip. As he's flatlining, Don Enrique reaches into his bag and he pulls out 2 little pebbles. And he rubs them. He rubs them together, and he's like,
Bolts, clear. 15,000 bolts. Oh, clear.
What the hell is going on?
and suddenly his heart is started again. He feels himself coming back to life with a jolt, and they're all standing together in this shallow water with these 2 small stones that this Peruvian shaman has used as a defibrillator.
What the hell? They're stones.
So after the shock of all this has passed, they're all sitting down by the shore, and he's thinking, what the hell just happened? And through the translator, Don Enrique explains that the Apus, the spirits of the mountain, decided to basically heal his heart. They saw that the dark spirit that he had tried to remove from his friend had seen that since he was young, he had a heart condition. And the spirit used this to try and poison him.
Right, okay, it's Wayne.
Trying to make him have a heart attack.
Yeah.
Now, the Apus, the spirits of the lake, decided to heal him. But in order to do it, they needed to momentarily stop his heart.
Oh.
And then restart it through the power of the shaman's pebbles so that they could get it at the right pace again.
I get it.
So it was this through this shaman healer that all this took place. Now, eventually, we learn from the Peruvian healer that the reason he knew to do this is because Rolling Thunder had appeared to him in weird Jedi form
Right.
and
yeah.
told him everything that was going to take place. So that's why he had his defibrillator pedals with him.
Ready to go. It's pretty amazing stuff.
It's cool stories. And throughout all of this, I kept on finding references to this older book from the 1970s, which was really what started all, the one from Doug Boyd. It came out on January 15th, 1976. And right at the end of the day, I decided to pick this up because I wanted to see where all this started. And it really is the best place to go if you want to learn more about Rolling Thunder. I'll link to it in the show notes. If you do some extensive searching, you can find some open library digital copies. That's how I got hold of it today.
This is the one published in 1976, is it?
That's right.
Okay.
And it was really bizarre because, again, I just stumbled across this book today, and how it fell in line with the Gaia theory I'd spoke about in the last show, how everything's interconnected, was quite uncanny. For the sake of time, I won't go into too much of it. But Boyd, again, he's coming from working with a Swami from India, and he sees all the same things, all these same trends, ways of speaking, and quality of their speech. He sees it all in Rolling Thunder. Long story short, he befriends Rolling Thunder. He goes and stays with him in Nevada. And I just want to include this little story where he's having dinner with him, and he's asking about, because it's a really hot day, and he's asking about going for a swim in one of the streams that's nearby. And Rolling Thunder says, you can't really go swimming in those streams because they're polluted. And he starts rambling on about this old Indian saying that anything that's downstream from a white man is polluted.
Yeah.
And he just keeps rambling on. And the way Boyd describes it is that all he's thinking about is going for a swim. So he kind of tunes out because Rolling Thunder is just rambling. And as this is happening, he's just still thinking about, I wonder if there's somewhere else I can go. Maybe there's a lake nearby. Yeah, there's got to be somewhere I can go where I can get a swim. And as he's kind of daydreaming, he hears